Ryan Leonard continues to dominate at the World Juniors.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about what are the Capitals' issues with scoring 5-on-5, which was glaringly brought into focus with the Capitals' big loss against the Rangers. How do they turn that around? We'll talk about that in this show. A little bit later, we will talk about how Ethan Bear signs a 2-year contract with the Capitals. It's officially official this time, though. But just to get it going here, we will talk about how Ryan Leonard and Ryan Chesley continue to just dominate. And what is promising for me in all of this is that, this team is not firing on all cylinders this year. They're playing pretty good. They're spotty here and there where they'll win a couple games and lose a couple games. But the future is what has got me most excited. And most notably, the Capitals pick last summer in Ryan Leonard, and also just taking a look back a little bit further than that, as well as Chesley. So some real bright options for the Capitals in years to come. So just a whole lot of positivity, and that was put on showcase as both Leonard and Chesley are playing at the World Juniors. And Ryan Leonard in particular continues to dominate as the U.S. takes down Switzerland by a score of 11-3 in the second World Juniors game. And most impressive, if you guys haven't caught any of the footage, I'm sure you can find it somewhere online, is that he is as advertised. That physical presence, a goal scorer, but not only that, a good playmaker, a bit of a pest, a deterrent. He brings all of the things that Capitals fans like. He is kind of a Tom Wilson 2.0, if you will, but he has a whole lot more to his game. And I'm excited to see what he has on this team. And when is it going to be? Hopefully sooner than later. If you're an everydayer of the show, I spoke about Leonard yesterday, but he continues to dominate. This isn't just a flash in the pan like, oh, he played well in this game and kind of dried up after that. He is knocking it out of the park at Boston College. He's knocking it out of the park at World Juniors. A lot to be excited about with Ryan Leonard. He's going to be just such a big addition to this team when he joins it. And I'm excited to see what he continues to do here. We know that Leonard was picked last summer at 8th overall. And if he continues to be the crown jewel in the Capitals' future and a true steal for Ross Mahoney and the Capitals that most believed should have gone after Mishkov. And I do think that's the case. He is one of the crown jewels in the Capitals organization as far as futures are concerned, not to mention the players that are in Hershey, not to mention the players that are with the Stingrays, not to mention the players that are playing in junior leagues right now. There is some really top tier talent within the Capitals organization and a lot to be excited about. So I don't know what the future holds for the Capitals this season. Again, it's up, it's been down. I think they're looking for consistency. A little bit later, I will talk about additions made to this team that might help push them more in the right direction. But as far as Leonard goes, knocking it out of the park and just knocking it out at every single level. There's no knock to his game. It's all plus, plus, plus. I wish I could tell you. I didn't wish, but if I could, I would tell you a negative thing about his game, but there really is no negative thing about his game. He's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the shot. He is the perfect NHL package, and we hope that he will be on this team sooner than later. Also, Ryan Chesley, a defenseman. If we want to turn back the clock a little bit, we remember how the Capitals got him at the draft. They got him by trading Vitek Vanacek, which let the Capitals move a position. So they were able to get Ryan Chesley, just a really top-tier talent. He was selected in the second round in the 2022 NHL draft. So great options in the futures as far as forwards. Great options as far as the blue line, the defense. Just a really a good thing for the Capitals going forward, as we know this team is going to be stacked in years to come. But taking a look at Leonard knocking it out of the park at Boston College, and then Chesley knocking it out of the park at the U of M. Just really great options for the Capitals. And if you guys haven't had a chance to, make sure and check out at least some of the highlights that are going on from the juniors there. The USA is just knocking it out of the park, and most, in particular, Leonard and Chesley, just real pleasant additions to that group there. And I look forward to seeing what they have at their respective colleges, but I don't think we could really ask for anything more. I think that, when I did my pick for the draft last summer, I had picked Benson. I thought that he was a versatile player. I kind of thought that he tied into what the Capitals were looking for. And I also thought that Mishkov, the Russian connection, and he seems to be kind of this untapped talent. But I'm going to step back on that one. I'm going to walk that back a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and say that I think that Leonard is a better option. I mean, I knew that he was good. I didn't know that he was going to be this good. So that is just a real pleasant surprise, I guess I'm going to say, as far as Leonard is concerned, as he continues to knock it out at every level that he's been at. And, I've spoke of that it's improbable that he will play on the Capitals next year, and it still is improbable if you want to look at statistically. I know that Fantilli made that jump right away, but if he continues to play at this level, knowing what the Capitals need as far as scoring and all the other things that he brings to the game, I think the Caps are going to have a hard time holding off, not wanting to have him join the team sooner than later. But definitely a player that you want to put on your radar. I know that this is a Capitals podcast, and sometimes you got to kind of go into the weeds a little bit to follow these prospects. As far as Leonard, say if you are a person that is not too familiar with players that aren't playing on the big team, that is a team that you want to follow. A good way to follow it is if you're on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, just subscribe to Boston College there, and they usually put clips up, and it's always impressed. I like when I get a notification on my phone that's something about Ryan Leonard, and it's always a highlight reel. You don't hear a lot about a lot of gaffes or anything like that. I guess if there was one knock, and I'm going to have to dig deep here on Ryan Leonard, is he got off to a slow start. But that slow start is in the rear view, or as in the rear view mirror, as he continues to dominate, and just a really pleasant addition. And also Chesley, we know about him. We've seen what he can do. So two huge pieces for the Capitals' future. That's what we're talking about here. Future pieces that is going to help bolster this team and make it a team to be reckoned with in the future. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about how it's officially official that Ethan Bear signed a contract with the Capitals, a 2-year deal. What does that mean for the Capitals, and who's in and who's going to be out? I'll talk about that coming up. It's almost the halfway point in the season. The Capitals continue to dominate regardless of where we are at in the current standings. I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. And let me tell you something, guys. I was not the kind of guy that was that big into fantasy hockey, but then I found Sleeper, and let me tell you something, I love it. So make sure and sign up for that. I think you'll really like it. So, to win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Capitals fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On Plus. Our national shows covering every league, so go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, in this next segment here, we are going to talk about how it's officially official that Ethan Bear is a member of the Capitals. Some people are asking what was the wait about there. Well, we know that he was recovering from a shoulder surgery, rehabbing there. We know that there was the freeze in place during the Christmas break there, but it was pen to paper today as he signs a 2-year deal, and a good deal for the Capitals, a low risk move. And ultimately, it is going to give Ethan Bear 2 years to prove why he deserves an extension down the road. I don't think that there's any negatives to his game. I guess it's kind of a wait and see approach as far as how he is recovering from his shoulder surgery. But what he told the press was that he's 100%. And we should look to see Ethan Bear Friday evening versus the Islanders. It is going to be exciting. Taking a look at it, it is a 2-year deal worth $4.125 million. Not too bad for a top tier blue liner that figures to be the future, with Faravari and Sandin just kind of setting up the Capitals to succeed in the future. Again, we don't know what this team is going to finish like this year. Are they going to be on the top? Are they going to be near the bottom? But what I know right now for sure, is that the Capitals look really good in the future. Taking a look at it, like I said, it's a low risk deal for the Caps, and 2 years for him to prove himself. He will be debuting, it looks to be Friday evening versus the Islanders. So an exciting thing to see what he has in the tank as advertised: a shutdown defenseman, a two-way game, an offensive flair, can log heavy minutes. He pretty much checks all the boxes. I am excited to see what he brings. He talked about that actually he relished his time off as he took time to reflect on what's important in his life and work on strength and conditioning and maybe some areas of his body that needed some work. So he is in peak fitness. And I think that ultimately the Canucks' loss will be the Capitals' gain. Last season, he played in 61 games for the Canucks, picking up 3 goals and 13 assists. And sometimes those stats aren't as sparkling for defensemen. You know, it's usually the forwards, the center that have the high goal totals, but he is a shutdown defenseman. So you have to kind of take a look at the plus minus, those kind of things for players on the blue line. The biggest plus for him is he's capable of playing big minutes and could be in the top 4. So he's not going to be like this depth move. He's going to take on a big role on the Capitals, and you should be excited to see what he has. I'm excited. It's been a while since they've added a new player. I know that we've had players that have been plugged and played from Hershey, that kind of thing, but look to see most likely Ethan Bear and also Max Pacioretty, who I'll talk about a little bit later in the show. So 2 new big pieces that could potentially maybe tip the needle a little bit for the Capitals in the right direction. So hopefully they can start scoring. Hopefully that will bolster the blue line to continue to be shut down defensively speaking. I, for one, I'm excited. He skates on the second pairing with Sandin, but that's subject to change. That was at practice. But I do expect him to log big minutes. But the bad news, I guess if there's got to be bad news, as I record this right now, is that it does appear that Trevor Van Riemsdyk is going to be the odd man out, as he was skating on the extra pairing with Alex Alexiev on Thursday. And I don't know if it's a long-term thing or if it's just they're going to cycle through different players that are going to get scratched. But I know that Spencer Carbery, especially with his defense, as he likes to keep right-hand shots on right-hand shots, left on left, those kind of things. So the difficult position for the Capitals is that on the right side, the Capitals have it pretty much buttoned up. There's not a lot of openings there. So unless there's a big injury, it's kind of a log jam, if you will. And that way it's kind of been my thought that potentially there could be a trade afoot. I've heard rumblings about Jensen before, and now it does appear that TVR is going to be a healthy scratch. And I think that ultimately, other than John Carlson and, Martin Faravari, I do think that there's a lot of players that are in flux, not to mention the options that they have down in Hershey and Alex Alexiev, who is often scratched, and Lucas Johansson and Vinny Iorio. That there is just a glut of talent on the blue line. And I know that sometimes you can look at history to learn a lot about the present and all the injuries that the Capitals faced last season. You remember John Carlson taking that puck off the melon, and he missed a substantial amount of time, and how they had to kind of rely on their depth in the form of Gustafsson, if you remember when he was on the team, and a lot of other players to play those heavy minutes that John Carlson plays. So I guess it depends on what player is injured. But in any event, I do think that there is some flexibility for Brian McClellan and the Capitals. If they want to move a piece out, they have the flexibility to do that, as they have Ethan Bear, who at least, from afar looks to be pretty good. He looked pretty good at practice, and taking a look at the back of his hockey card, it looks pretty good. There's not a lot to not like about his game. Except for the shoulder surgery and everything. Medical team signed off for him. When he met the press today, he said he's 100%. So there is no real negativity. You're going to have to dig deep to find some negativity on Ethan Bear. A big, big move. And that's what I'm talking about. I guess that, ultimately I'm still hoping for that top six forward that Brian McClellan has been looking for, that we've heard about ever since last summer. And I know that at least to an extent, Max Pacioretty might be that, but seeing is believing. We know that 6 times in his career he scored 30 goals, but we also know that the last 2 seasons he's had Achilles issues. However, what we've seen at practice, and I don't want, for him to constantly be living in the rearview mirror, in hindsight and all that. What we know right now is Max Pacioretty at camp looks great. What we know, Ethan Bear, or at practice, looks great. So Max Pacioretty, Ethan Bear, 2 huge pieces that stand to truly bolster this team, and an exciting game. Must-see TV. If there is truly must-see TV anymore, I would say that it is going to be Friday evening, because as we know right now, it does appear that it will be the debut of Max Pacioretty, the player that's been on this team for the longest time, but has yet to have his skates on the ice during a regular game. Pretty exciting. I remember what he had in the tank when he played on the Canadians, what he had in the tank when he played on the Golden Knights. A great player with a great shot. If we can even just get a glimpse of that, I think that the Capitals will be in a really good position. All right, so coming up here after the break, we know that the Capitals have struggled scoring goals. If we want to take a look at the box score from the last game against the Rangers, they were able to muster a single goal. How are they going to get more scoring up and down the lineup? I'll talk about that coming up. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get on the action. The app is so easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. And let me tell you something, guys. If you're watching a football game, for example, and you're not that into it, say you're watching the Commanders playing a meh game, or maybe you're watching the Ravens kind of knock it out of the park, open up the FanDuel app and put a little bit of money on the game. It makes watching the game that much more exciting. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Spencer Carbery was irritated. He was irate, and he doesn't hide it well, as it's all over his face. I can tell when he's mad. I can tell when he's mad on the bench. I can tell when he's irritated at the pressers with some of the questions that he gets. He's got angry eyes. I'm going to say when he gets mad, they kind of look and his jaw's clenched, and he doesn't hide his emotions well. And he is frustrated. Why? Because he puts a lot of pride in his effort and the effort that his assistants put into it. That why aren't the Capitals scoring more goals? 5-on-5 in particular seems to be their one bugaboo this year. It seems like the defense saved the last game. Of course, we take a look at the box score. It's not going to indicate that, but defensively has been pretty good, except for the last game. I'm going to go ahead and say they've been laying their body out and trying to block shots. They've been buying into the system. And I think that ultimately the Capitals need more scoring than just Anthony Mantha. I know it's crazy. You're not in a time machine and we're not in an alternate reality. Anthony Mantha is killing it this year. But they need more than just Anthony Mantha killing it. They need more than Dylan Strome and Tom Wilson and Charlie Lindgren. This team all needs to be pulling on that collective rope, and they need scoring up and down the lineup. That means the first line, second, third, and fourth line, and also more scoring from the blue line, getting involved in the rush, those type of things. And those are some of the things that keep Spencer Carbery up at night. They seem to be totally bought in and buying into the system 1 minute. And then you have a game like the game the other night against the Rangers where the wheel started to wobble and then it just fell off. And it was just a mess. It was a tough game to watch towards the end there. So the Capitals are hoping to rebound this weekend, and it all starts Friday evening as the Capitals take on the Islanders. And let's hope that they can do it. Let's hope they can find a way to get it done. And what are some of the things that kind of irritate him? Of course, like I talked about, the 5-on-5 hockey and how the Capitals are struggling and what Carbs plans to do to fix it. It was magnified in the Capitals' big loss to the Rangers 5-1. And 5-1 isn't a mistake. It is a complete breakdown in the systems. Make no mistake about it. It's not like a 2-1 loss, a 3-2, a 3-1 loss, 5-1. And granted, it was against a really great New York Rangers team, against an elite level goaltender in the form of Shesterkin. And not to mention all the scoring power that's on that team was Zibanejad. And there is a ton of talent on the Rangers, make no mistake about it. Carbery says, have we found ways to win games 2-1 and get a goal from our power play in overtime? Sure we have, Carbery says. Win a few games in the shootout for sure. And we deserve a lot of credit for that. But, he added empathetically, at the end of the day, we have to start scoring 5-on-5 if we're going to be a quality team in this league. You can't have, Anthony Mantha scoring a goal or two and expect that to be sustainable. If you have long-term plans of this team doing great things, you are going to need more even scoring up and down the lineups. Talking about you, Alex Ovechkin, we could really use 40 or 50 goals this season. We need the big marquee names engaged. I know that TJ Oshie is out. We need more from TJ Oshie. We're already out Nick Backstrom and what he brings to this team. That is why we need more. He says we can defend, we can check, we're detailed, we're organized, but we've got to score. And we just don't have that right now. You've got to find a way to score 5-on-5 if you have any long-term plans of sustainability. The Caps are defending and laying their bodies to keep it out of the back of the net. Generally speaking, of course, the addition of Max Pacioretty should help in that pursuit. At least potentially, Max Pacioretty should at least in part help with what is, ailing the Capitals, and that is their anemic goal scoring. The Caps, 52 goals at 5-on-5, rank 30th. There's 32 teams in the NHL, just ahead of Anaheim in San Jose. That is not a feather in your hat. That is not something to feel good about. That is something that needs work in a hurry. The Caps need more than just a single player standout performance. Over the last 3 games, it's been the Mantha show. And that's good for Mantha, but it's not really great for the Capitals. I mean, it's good that he's getting production, but we need more Anthony Manthas, as funny as that is to say out loud, on this team. I mean, not to disparage Anthony Mantha, he has been lightning in a bottle, and I don't know what he's taken, but I'll take some of that as he's, just exuding with all sorts of confidence and really helping the Capitals do great things. So what do they need? More of the big names to prove why we revere them as big name players. Alex Ovechkin, he has 6 goals on the season and still hasn't found his groove. Again, I hate to keep beating a dead horse here, but I mean, I know he had that overtime game winner, and that was great, but 6 goals on the season. Let's take a look back historically. Let's take a look at the Wayback Machine on the microfiche here. In 22-23, he had 42 goals. In the 21-22 season, he had 50 goals. And in this current season, right now, he has 6. Hasn't even hit double digits yet. Anthony Mantha has scored more goals than Alex Ovechkin. That's a tough pill to swallow for Alex Ovechkin. And I know that he's doing his darndest. And I know that, we can't put all the pressure on him. He's doing what he can do and all that sort of thing. But we need more. When Oshie comes back, we need more. When Milano comes back, we need more. We need more. And there's no other way around it. I don't think I can sugarcoat it any other way that this team is struggling scoring goals. And ultimately, we hope that they can finally kick it into gear. It's got to be the time sometime here. So hopefully Max Pacioretty can get this team going. Hopefully Ethan Bear can be that shutdown defenseman and show a little bit of that offensive flair that we know from him historically. That is what we are hoping for. All right, listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are ultimately what makes this show successful. So thank you for listening or watching this each and every day. And when you're done over here, make sure and head over to Locked On's streaming channel, the first ever 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. So go to Locked On Sports today on YouTube and subscribe. It's a really cool thing, guys. So make sure and check that out. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.